Thank you everyone for coming tonight. I know it's a really busy time of year and making the time is somewhat challenging, but I appreciate everyone who had the opportunity to show up tonight. I have a few housekeeping things for this evening. First of all, this talk is being recorded and will be shared online through our YouTube channel in the upcoming weeks. It does take us a little bit of time to edit. I know that's everyone's favorite question. How fast are you going to get it up there? But we do edit these videos and make sure we put names and things like that in there. We encourage audience participation. We're a small group tonight, so please ask your questions. As Ken and I were talking before this, he really loves to have lots of good questions. So,
or bad ones.
Yeah, any thoughts? Please offer those out. I'll start with the introduction, and then we're going to just let Ken kind of take it away. We do have some time planned at the end for additional questions if we need it, but if we get them covered along the way, that's great. Please, when you're speaking, do include at least your first name and how you're affiliated with the college. I'm a student, I'm a faculty member, I'm the college's lawyer, and making sure that we do everything by the book tonight. Just teasing. And, from there, we'll just kind of roll into the program. Tonight we have with us Ken Brandt, the author of The Adventures, lovely Ken over here, and his darling wife Judy, who is a hoot and a holler. He is the author of the adventure and humor-filled memoir, Positive Vision, Enjoying the Adventures and Advantages of Poor Eyesight. He has led a very fun and adventurous life, along with a whirlwind tour around the country in 84 days, or around the world in 84 days, almost like the novel. He has had also a wonderful, successful business career. He held positions in senior management and management consulting in information technology and cybersecurity before he wrote this wonderful book that he has recently published. Regardless of everything, he has never limited himself by his vision, so he has taken whatever life can offer, and it sounds like he's had a really fun adventure along the way. I'm kind of jealous, actually. He's also an amateur-style jazz, New Orleans-style jazz trumpeter. He and his wife, Judy, have been married for over 20 years, have lived most of their lives in New York City until their move 16 years ago, if I'm correct, to Australia, which is where they currently have their latest adventure going on. And I think, anything else? Did I miss any major points? Excellent. So I'm going to let Ken take over from here and tell you more about his book and his adventures.
Thank you very much. That was very, very flattering, and I appreciate it. And thank you everybody for coming. Thanks. First, just a couple things. Thanks to Jennifer for organizing this whole thing, and for Jennifer and Dawn and all the people that have helped put this thing together. Very, very nice. Even bigger thanks to every optometrist and future optometrist and teacher of optometrists in the room. I think there's not enough thank yous to optometrists. You're really changing people's lives. It's easy to forget that. Very easy. You can go to the optometrist, you might say, yeah, okay, thanks. But you should realize the really big difference, really big, that you're making in people's lives. So, thank you. All right, I got choked up on that, so I'm a little embarrassed, but I'll move forward. This is my book, Positive Vision, Enjoying the Adventures and Advantages of Poor Eyesight. So, why did I write this book? What's going on? What do you mean advantages of poor eyesight? What are you, a knucklehead? What do you mean advantages? All right, I want to clear this up right away. Good eyesight, not surprisingly, is way better than poor eyesight. My eyesight has gone up and down, up and down, up and down a bunch of different times. I've had 6 eye operations. I was legally blind for big chunks of my life. 2 detached retinas, 2 cataract operations, and 2 other operations. And definitely better is is the preferred version. So I advise everybody to take all the advice from any doctor and every optometrist. You know, do everything you can to protect your eyes. But even though good eyesight is better than poor eyesight, there are some advantages to poor eyesight. And if you have poor eyesight, you might as well enjoy them. You know, you've got poor eyesight, you've already done everything that you're supposed to do, everything your optometrist told you to do, everything your doctor told you to do. Your general health is as good as you can do, whatever it is. But, you know, maybe you're like me and you're just, your eyesight's not gonna get any better. You know, I'm at 20/80 in my good eye, and twice that in my other eye. And plus, when I'm tired, my eyes go off and are slightly crossed. So you can pretty much judge how tired I am by like my look. So what are the advantages? And I think there's tons of advantages and nobody talks about it, but people should talk about it. And I'll start with one that I'm in the middle of right now. Public speaking. Public speaking for many people is terrifying, truly terrifying. Not just for nearsighted people, not just foresighted people, for everybody. There have been surveys where people had the choice of death or giving a speech in public. There's a lot of people that would pick death, which is, you know, that's a pretty serious thing. So, but as a nearsighted person, we have advantages in public speaking. First, you're not intimidated by the size of the audience because, you know, is it a medium-sized audience or a large-sized audience? Well, a lot of times you can't really tell. Are people's expressions like you're watching? Is your boss? Is your client? Is your best friend in the audience? And what's their expression? How are they reacting to this? That can be very distracting and nerve-wracking. Doesn't bother me at all. I can't tell. You know, and then many times when you're giving a speech, there's lights on you, and even if you have good vision, you can't see the audience. Well, if you have good vision, that throws you off because you're used to seeing everybody's expression. You're used to seeing their reaction. But not me, not a nearsighted person, where you go, I can't see anybody's reaction. I have to judge by, are people clapping in the right place? Are they laughing in the right place? Are they talking when you're hoping they would be listening? That's how I figure out what people's reactions are. So we have all these advantages in public speaking that people with good vision don't have. Enjoy it. The other thing is, many times when you're giving a speech, I don't have any tonight, but you have a PowerPoint presentation, right? So if I'm up here with a PowerPoint presentation, you know, I have trouble seeing my own PowerPoint presentation, or even if it's on a screen in front of me, I still have trouble seeing the PowerPoint presentation. So I don't really necessarily know where I am. And I am forced, which is a good thing, to memorize the outline of my speech in advance, practice it a few times, and know the details and be able to talk about examples of those things. So I'm more practiced on average than many people when they're giving a speech because I have to be. Anybody could take that advantage, you don't have to be nearsighted. But also, when I'm given the PowerPoint, I'm not reading the PowerPoint to the audience, which in my experience happens a huge amount of time in schools and business where, you know, you're sitting there in the audience, you know, if you can see the PowerPoint, you're pretty bored because what is the guy reading it to you doing? So I don't read the PowerPoint. I talk about something about it in part because I can't read the PowerPoint. So that works out really well most of the time, but sometimes I get out of order. And I'm going along, and what I'm talking about really has nothing to do with the slide. I'm a slide ahead or a slide behind or something. And then if I notice, sometimes I never notice till afterwards, but if I notice, then I just explain what happens and laugh. And invariably, the audience laughs along with me. And you have a better connection with the audience. So the whole thing works out really well. And the other part, the flip side of that is, the disadvantage is that as an audience member, when I'm in the audience, as opposed to being a speaker, you don't even have to sit near the front, because almost always the speaker reads the PowerPoint. So you don't have to see it at all. So just think about that when you're giving a speech, like try not to just repeat the entire PowerPoint and believe people can read it, unless you've got a bunch of nearsighted people, and then actually make sure you cover all the topics. Anyway, that's an advantage, one of many advantages of being nearsighted or having poor vision. Public speaking. So I'm gonna move on to some other things. I'll tell you a New York City specific adventure story. I'll tell you a little bit, I'll tell you a couple of jokes from the book. There are jokes at the end of every chapter, which have been field tested. I've heard this from optometrists who've read the book, field tested by optometrists with their patients. And I'll tell you which ones work pretty well. And then a little bit about philanthropy. I'll tell you that right now. Should you decide to buy the book, which I am very biased, but encourage you to buy it, it's available as an ebook, audiobook, hardcover, paperback. It's available everywhere online. If you buy it, 5% of the royalties go to the Fred Hollows Foundation, which I just learned an hour ago that your school is affiliated with, which is great. An organization that helps people in poor areas of the world, 20-something countries, not recover, but I don't know what the right words would be. It helps people get out of preventable blindness. So they were blind, but thanks to people like you, they can see in all these areas where there's simple things that could help them. And then also and then 5%, in addition, a different 5% goes to Massachusetts Eye and Ear, because I had 2 detached retina operations there, and without them I couldn't see anything. And without a lot of people like you, I couldn't see anything. So, and it was way, way long ago when I had that operation. Like, it was at the very beginning of detached retina operations. I was unconscious at the time, but they put you in a bed, flip it upside down. You're on the ceiling. They used to do the operations that way when you were upside down, and for some reason that was easier at the time. They don't do that anymore. Any questions about anything, about the book, about being a patient? Happy to answer at any moment, so please don't hesitate to raise your hand. I would be very excited to answer any question about anything anywhere along the way. I'll start talking about an adventure in New York. So Judy and I lived most of our life in New York. Judy was born and bred in New York. I moved here when I was a kid. Not when I was a kid. I moved here just after college, and we lived here most of our life before we moved to Australia. And then, so one of the places I lived was a rent-stabilized apartment on the 5th floor of a walk-up on 91st Street and between 3rd Avenue and Lexington Avenue. When I moved there in the 70s, it was East Harlem, and then I stayed there, and it was there were mostly abandoned buildings on the block. 3rd Avenue above 86th Street was a lot of abandoned stores. So it wasn't the neighborhood it is today. It was like the 30-cent beer bar places, and then over time, I didn't move. I can't take credit for this, but it became the Upper East Side, and sushi places and everything else. But in between those 2 extremes, a longtime friend of mine named John, he and I both were living and working in New York City. He and I met when my family moved from Pennsylvania to Connecticut. It was 2nd grade. We got in a fight the first day of school. We both think we won, and we've been friends ever since. We're walking from north on 3rd Avenue, and we had for many years been on cross-country and track teams together. We're running many New York Roadrunner races. And all of a sudden, now this is a weeknight, you know, you're supposed to, we're going to school, going to work the next day and everything else. So we're in suits, but we had been out really late, having beers, trying to pick up women. We didn't get anywhere that night, but we had a great time. And we're walking up 3rd Avenue, and all of a sudden, and because, why we're walking up 3rd Avenue, because his car was parked there, he wanted to go to his car, and I wanted to go to my apartment, and it was both in the same direction. All of a sudden, and it's, I don't know what time it is, it's like 1 or 2 in the morning, right, on a weeknight. All of a sudden he starts running. Doesn't say a word, he just starts sprinting. So I start sprinting, and I'm thinking, it's somebody, and I'm looking, is somebody chasing us? I don't see anybody chasing us. But, you know, John's running, and I trust him completely, so I start running. And we are not ready for running. You know, we had been drinking all night, and we're in suits and ties, and, you know, suits and tie type shoes, you know, and we're sprinting. I'm thinking, what are we doing? What are we doing? So he's not saying a word, he's just sprinting, so I start sprinting. Then I see what happens. We get closer, and I see what he sees. Somebody is breaking into his Cherokee Jeep, which he had parked there. So the robber doesn't hear us at first, but then he sees us, and he takes off. So we're chasing him. We're not being chased. I was very happy about that. So then we go left on 91st Street from 3rd towards Lex, right? So we're going along. We're running hard. We should have caught this guy. If this was like during the day and we were in our, you know, running gear, we would have caught this guy. But we were having a lot of trouble keeping up with him. So we're running along. We're all on the sidewalk. Then the thief cuts into the middle of the street. John cuts into the middle of the street. I stay on the sidewalk. So now I'm dead even with the guy. So I'm parallel with him. John's behind him. We're running along, and somebody had thrown out a mattress on the sidewalk. And I didn't see the mattress. So I'm running along, and then all of a sudden, I'm in the air, I trip over the mattress, and it seemed like a very, very long time. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is embarrassing, and this is gonna hurt. So then I land against a bunch of garbage cans, and then the pavement, and it's like, that was not what I had in mind, right? So it takes me a little while to get back up. Meanwhile, they get to Lexington Avenue, they go uptown. So John is chasing the guy uptown. I get up, I start going up Lex. I see them, but they turn right. So I don't know what street they would turn right. So I figure, all right, fine. So I'm going as fast as I can. I go up Lex, and I'm looking, I don't see him. I'm looking, I don't see him. I'm looking, I don't see him. I get all the way up to 96th Street, which seemed like a mile away. And I go, all right, they had to have turned before this. So I turn and start sprinting that way. Then the police stop me, and they think I'm the thief, and I have to take the position, and I can't say anything because I'm so out of breath, I can't talk. So I'm there, and then while that's going on, John chases the guy to the right. They go on, I forget, 93rd, 94th or something. They go over to 2nd, they go over to 1st, they run around. John catches them. But he's so exhausted, the thief gets away. The thief gets away, and he starts running back. And so he comes running back the other way. John catches him again, and on 92nd and 93rd in Lex. And this time he's able to hold on to him. Now in the meantime, in all this chasing around, a bicycle guy had started following John and the thief, and both of them were yelling out, call the cops, call the cops, call the cops. So a lot of people had called the cops, which is why they arrested me while I was, didn't arrest me, they stopped me while I was running. And a doorman saw the thief throw his bag of tools behind some bushes. He got those and called the cops, so they had that. And then when John caught the guy, and a lot of police showed up because a million people were calling him, the bicycle guy disappeared. So we don't know who that guy was, but he was very helpful. So John, meanwhile, is holding on to this guy. There's cops all over the place. I don't know any of this stuff. So I come running, I said, all right, I don't know what I should do. I figured I'll go back towards John's car. So I go down Lexington Avenue, and now I'm running again. And the police didn't explain anything to me. They said, all right, get out of here. And that was like their whole explanation. So I didn't know what that was about. So I go down Lexington, and I see the thief. I don't see John, and I don't notice all the people around him, what they are or what they're doing, right? But I see him, and I run, then I somehow sprint, and I do, I think, the best jump I've ever done in my life. I jump up, and I'm like hip high. My hips are equal to the shoulders and heads of all these people surrounding him, and I'm yelling, and I have my arms up, and then I realize while I'm in the air that they're all cops surrounding this guy, and they start pulling out their batons and their guns, and I'm having this moment of like, oh, this is not going to be good, and then the thief is down in the middle, and then I realize John is beside him, and he stands up because he hasn't been able to talk the whole time because he's been so exhausted from running. He goes, no, he's with me, and so John basically saved me. So then I land, but I didn't have to do anything. This guy's surrounded, he's caught. So that was really good. And it turns out we never had to go to court to testify against this guy because his fingerprints were all over his burglary tools, his fingerprints were other burglary sites, and he, which is not a good move, he was so nervous he threw up on several cops. So between all of those things, he went to jail. There wasn't no need for a trial. He confessed and went to jail. So then, John and I are congratulating ourselves, sort of like, and then we go, wait a minute, what about your car? So we realize, we gotta go back and check the car, which is wide open still, because the thief had opened it. So we run back down that first street, and now we're running again. And then a really embarrassing thing happened, which was, I again trip over the same mattress going the other way. And this time I'm in the air and I'm thinking to myself, this is so embarrassing and this is gonna hurt. This is just completely my own fault here. So then I land on the cement. It was really a very bad day for my suit. Then I get up, we keep going to his car. His car was fine except for what had happened previously. So now it's like really early in the morning. So he goes back to his apartment, I go to my apartment, we shower, we go to work, and neither of us were good for anything that day at work, but each of us, we talked later, spent the entire day just telling people this story, and everybody was happy we made the neighborhood safer. I'm not convinced I actually contributed that much, but John is a very good friend, and basically tells everybody that I was essential to the capture of the thief. So, that's a sort of a nearsighted adventure where the book is full of stories like that, but that's one of my favorite ones. So that happened. Then, what else did I want to talk about? Some jokes. All right, these have been road tested by optometrists. There's two kinds of jokes in the book. One are more, they're all very corny jokes. They're at the end of each chapter, there's a couple of jokes that are vaguely related to the subject of the chapter. And some are clearly for kids, but lots are for adults. So this one, and I never actually did a survey, but I've independently, unsolicited, heard from many optometrists that 8-year-olds really like this joke. All right. What do you call a nearsighted dinosaur? Do you think he saw us? Apparently that leaves them rolling on the floor if they're the right age.
And then another joke, which is more of an adult joke, is a guy walks into a restaurant and he's by himself. He's just going out to dinner, and he sees a woman sitting at a table by herself, and she's just starting her dinner. But he's going over to a different table. They don't know each other, and the woman sneezes, and it turns out she has a glass eye, and she does a sneeze, and her glass eye pops out, and it's flying across the room, and he runs, and Matrix-like, in slow motion somehow, he catches the eyeball, and he gives it to her, and she says, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry, but thank you so much. Could I make it up to you? Could I buy you dinner? Would you like to join me for dinner?" And so the guy goes, "Okay." So they sit down and they have a great conversation. And at the end, he says, "Well, we have a lot in common. It was a really fun conversation. I really enjoyed it. You're very interesting and all these things. And would you, you just gave me your phone number, but do you give your phone number to everybody on the first date? Or first time you meet?" She goes, "Oh, no. You just happened to catch my eye." So that's the kind of joke in the book, So you might like that, you might, if not, just read the next chapter's jokes. And then I'll close with another advantage, but again, hoping to get questions. I think one of the great things about having poor vision is the world is a more beautiful place. So think about it. Think about, all right, so somebody like me is pretty nearsighted, and versus somebody who can see really well, right? So you're looking at, like a forest or a natural scene, a beautiful mountains or a beautiful town or city, or artworks that are spectacular, that are brand new or ancient, and the person who sees well goes, "Well, those are really nice, but there's a little rust over here on this bridge or this building, and there's a little graffiti next to this meadow, or this building was really nice, but this thing is starting to chip over here, And I might not see any of that stuff. I'm looking at it going, "It looks good to me, it's really good. Those details I can't see them, they don't bother me at all." And the same thing with people. This person's going, "Well, he or she looks really good, except you got a few wrinkles and stuff, and I'm thinking, I don't know, they look great to me, So the world is a more beautiful place if you don't see as well. It's a I'm not saying if it's a giant garbage dump, I think it's beautiful, but you miss a lot of the details, and that can be very nice. So that's one of the advantages. So that's sort of a quick sampling of what's in the book, and if anybody wants to buy, I have 2 copies to sell, and otherwise it's available literally everywhere online. And if there's any questions, I would very much like to try to answer them.
Ken, I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, so you know me, I'm Jennifer, but so I've heard a lot more of your talks and looked more at your book, and I've seen the breadth and depth of your adventures that you've taken, and it's remarkable because there are people who are fully sighted who have not lived a life as full as yours. So what is it about you that you can share with us so that we can impart that to the people that we work with who are really struggling with maybe losing vision for the first time, their life changing very, very much, and they're feeling very badly about that? How do we impart the positivity that you have infused your life with? Where did that well of positivity come from? Where did that source of curiosity and adventure and the interest of looking at things that would devastate other people in a way that you see nothing but positive?
Well,
How does that work?
well, you never really know, but I'll try to answer that in two completely different ways just to confuse everything. When I was writing the book, my editor asked me sort of a similar question, and I was thinking that there were three reasons why I might be more adventurous than other people, but you never know, because I'm only one person. I can't. It's hard to do a comparison, you know. So one part could be heredity. You know, like I think some of my relatives were very adventurous. My father was, and grandfather got medals for bravery in the Korean War and World War II. I have a great grandmother who, what did she do? When she was 13, she came from Ireland to Boston, and then married a sea captain, and then for their honeymoon, they went by horseback from Boston to Yellowstone National Park and back. Took them a year, you know, and this is back like when you had to go by horseback, you know, so you had to be pretty adventurous to do that. So heredity, and my mom was pretty adventurous and stuff, but she doesn't like me to describe that, so I won't. And then second is, I think, wait, what is second? Well, I'll have to refer to the book or get you to refer to the book for number two. But number three is, I think, actually being nearsighted or having poor vision forces you to be braver, because you're always walking around seeing less than everybody else. So you still have to go out the door. You still have to get whatever it is you're gonna do done, you know, but you just don't see as well. You know, like you're walking down the sidewalk, all right, especially at night, but even during the day, you know, is that a black spot? Is that a pothole? Is that an oil slick? Is that a shadow? You know, I have great difficulty with that. But you're gonna walk down that sidewalk. You have to take those steps. You've gotta go someplace. And you've gotta walk into a room and everybody else sees everybody. You don't know everybody. You don't know these people because you have to be much closer. You've gotta be braver or bolder because you're just going into it and you don't know what you're going into. And I think if you're bold all the time, you eventually get in the habit of being brave. So I think that's part of it. So that's two out of the three, and I forget the third reason I came up with.
His mother was very supportive of him when he was a child. And she expected him to do whatever other kids did. I think that was...
Excellent save. Excellent save. Yes, that's exactly right. My father died when I was very young. So my mother brought us up, my brother and I. So she never, ever once talked about limitations based on sight. Ever. And I think that's very different than many kids experience, but it's very important. You just don't worry about it. You know, I didn't really think about it at all till I got to the age where everybody was getting a driver's license except me. You know, I can't get a driver's license because, you know, it would be fundamentally bad for society if I could get a driver's license. It would be very dangerous. It would be a lot of fun. I did there's a little bit about this in the book. And I have cousins who live and have a ranch, like a real ranch, not a dude ranch, an actual cattle ranch in Montana. And I spent a couple of times out there, and it was really fun. I learned to drive, which you can do when you're in the middle of nowhere and driving around, and they're not really worried about you running into anything. I did drive into some very big ditches, and they had to tow me out, but nobody got hurt, so it was okay. So those are the 3 reasons. Thanks for the save. Very nice. And then there was a whole additional way I was going to answer that question. Why would I like adventures versus other people? I think part of it is just your nature. Do you think different things are fun? I'm a certified scuba diver. I was the captain of my college parachute team until I found out that having a detached retina and parachuting aren't a really good combination. But if you like adventurous things, you just keep doing them. And I would say to anybody who has poor vision, first, do all the stuff that you're supposed to do for your general health. Work out, get a good night's sleep, do everything your doctor says. Second, do all the stuff that optometrists and eye professionals say you're supposed to do. Take care of your eyes, wear sunglasses, get checkups, do whatever the doctor says. If you need to have an operation, if you need to, whatever you need to do all that. Then you get to some point where, all right, you're at maximum vision for you, whatever it is. It might be pretty low, might be great, doesn't matter. Whatever you are, then whatever you want to do, just give it a red hot go. Just go for it. Just do it. It doesn't matter. You do the best you can. Worst thing is it doesn't work out. The best thing is it's really fun. So just go for it. Don't let that be a limiting factor. That's what I say to people. That's my 2-part answer, where I finally remembered both parts.
All right, I have another question.
Good.
Well, Jennifer, let's let someone else in the room, and we'll come back to you. Does anyone else have questions? Because Jennifer and I've already said we could probably pepper him with questions all night long. But
and I love being peppered. I'm like a steak or something. Okay.
Go ahead, Teresa.
So I'm just curious, what role did an optometrist have in either saving your vision or preserving the vision?
Well, I feel a little bad being in school of optometry and not being able to give a more specific answer to this, because I've had different eye operations, so I required ophthalmologists my whole life basically. So I've always gone to ophthalmologists. So I go, and I've been doing this for many years, once a year for a checkup, and then after I had both a detached retina and cataract operations in each eye, now I go every other year to a retina specialist and every other year to a lens specialist and alternate there. So since I have not been to an optometrist for a very long time.
And in all fair disclosure, we learned he had no idea we even existed when all of this was going on, and he lived in New York. So he has now seen the light of SUNY College of Optometry.
Yes, and I'm very impressed, and I am somewhat embarrassed that I never heard of him.
All right, can I ask my other question now? Yes. Okay. So a lot of our patients are dealing with a change in their work status because of the change in their vision. And so there's a lot of stress and anxiety as obviously their livelihood or access to employment opportunities are changing. That has not been the case for you. You've had a wonderful career, but you talked about, can you talk about what your life and employment has been like with your vision impairments? Because you said you really didn't want to talk about that to employers.
Exactly. I spent my entire career until I wrote this book not wanting to discuss my vision at all and trying to like sort of fake my way through everything, you know, letting people think I could see enough. You know, if I didn't bring it up, I could get through. I had a job. I was an apprentice sheet metal worker in New York, and I loved it. I really liked it. Sheet metal workers build ducts, like the ducts used for heating and ventilation and air conditioning, where hot air or cold air blows through and it heats or cools the building. And I was in the South Bronx. There was a plant that would make the ducts, and then I would, as an apprentice, and then I would help install the ducts on other days. I alternated between that, or you know, sometimes weeks, but you know, alternate times. And I worked on one building, and I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was within a few blocks of here, putting in the ducts, and also on when it existed. This was not, I'm not so old that I worked on the building of the World Trade Center, but I worked on the renovation of the top of one of the towers where they knocked everything out of 3 floors, and they were putting ducts in. And so one time, so we're there, and being the apprentice, I was given this job, which was one of the sheet metal workers like was holding me by the legs, and I'm leaning out to fix something outside. So we're whatever it is, 110 stories up, and I'm leaning out fixing the thing where you have to like bend at the waist and go down and lean down to fix it. And you know, I spent a little extra time because I never had a view like that. That was really, really cool. I'm half out of the duct. If that guy was no longer to me, I'd be totally dead. So I was glad he was. But it was the winter, and it was windy. It's really windy up at the top, right? And so instantly, the entire floor, so all these other people, you know, carpenters and plumbers and everybody else doing work, you know, they start yelling, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Get to it!" You know, and so one of the sheet metal workers turned around and goes, "Hey, one of our guys, he's outside there." And everybody shut up. They go, "Really? He's outside?" I go, "Yes." So anyway, I finish my stuff, come back in, and close it up. And later, that was really good. So after a few weeks, I'm at the Sheet Metal Workers Training Center in Queens, and one of the guys in charge of training the apprentices goes, "Well, you know, you have pretty thick glasses. You know, I wonder if you see well enough to be a sheet metal worker." So I had been doing a good job, and the people I worked with thought I was doing a good job. But he said, "Well, ask an eye doctor, and if you get an eye doctor to say it's okay for you to be a sheet metal worker, then fine." So I go to my eye doctor. Now, maybe this is a problem. I should have gone to an optometrist instead of an ophthalmologist. But anyway, go to my eye doctor, and he goes, "What, are you kidding me? You shouldn't be doing that, going up and down." And I go, "What do you mean? I can see everything fine." He goes, "You should not be doing that." So he refused to write the letter. So I lost my job. I had to like stop being a sheet metal worker. So I really liked it. So I ended up, you know, doing other stuff. I became an IT and cybersecurity guy, and ended up managing, you know, leading and managing very large projects on Wall Street and for governments and stuff. So I enjoyed that too, but I was very happy doing the sheet metal work. So I avoided, in my, you know, white collar IT cybersecurity time, ever bringing up anything about vision. I didn't bring it up in interviews or anything. A few times after I started the job, they would say, "Oh, you got to go here, rent the car, and do this," which I couldn't do. And then I would say to my boss, I said this a couple of different places. I say, "Well, I can't rent a car. I don't see well enough to do that," which surprised them. And then I offered to resign. I said, "Look, if this is important, I didn't tell you about this before, and I'll just leave if you want." And they always said, "No, don't leave. Stay with, you know, we'll figure out a way to, somebody else will go with you, or whatever." So I got by, but I was very much helped over time by larger screens and easier to read things. Those really saved me. You know, at first it was when computers were young, it was much harder to read them, and it's become much easier. I am a very, very big fan of large screens. So that's my sort of work-related story.
Other questions? Go ahead.
So I'm Paige, I'm a student here. A lot of the patients here, as they go through challenges, they seem to lose a lot of their confidence, either personally or just in their jobs. How would you say that you manage your challenges to keep your confidence up or rebuild your confidence?
Well, sometimes I would worry that I just can't see well enough to get something done. And then I would just think to myself, all right, well, there's nothing else I can do for my sight. I've got to figure out another way to get it done. But I never wanted to discuss that with anybody. So there's probably a million people that would say the advice is go talk to other people, and I did the opposite. I didn't talk to anybody. Now, is that a good approach for everybody? I don't know. I'm definitely not a psychiatrist, psychologist, or like advisor in that sense. But I just felt for myself, I've got to buck up. I've got to figure out a way to do it because, it's my life, it's my career. If I'm not going to be responsible for it, why should anybody else? How can anybody else? I've got to figure out a way to do it. Sometimes, it does get sort of scary when you're like for the cataracts. My doctor said, well, wait until the last possible minute because you want to wait. At that time, they said that was the strategy before you have the operation. So, I did. I waited a long time, but then I was walking along. I was in Brooklyn. I was living in Brooklyn, and I had just moved there from Baltimore, right? So I was new to the place, and I had only been there during the day. So the first time I'm there at night, I realize I can't read the street signs. And I don't know this neighborhood very well because I just moved here. And it took me quite a while to find where I lived. I was very happy with that. But on the way, I'm walking along, and I'm just casually walking along, and there's some utility, Con Ed people, and I'm just walking along, and they're standing there, and someone's standing there, and I'm about to walk literally into a manhole, and one guy goes, wait a minute, he saved me from walking into the manhole, which I am forever grateful for. But then I realized, all right, now is the time. I've got to do it. But it can be a little scary. And the next day, which was, I spent walking around the neighborhood in the daylight and just memorizing everything. Like this is the street, these are the buildings on the street, these are big things I can see. I don't have to see the street signs, but you have to, it can be exciting. You have to view it as an adventure. If you view it as just totally terrifying, I think you're dead in the water. You have to just sort of think it's fun. All right, I'm in a giant puzzle. I know I live somewhere in this neighborhood. How do I find my house? This might be a sexist thing to say, but many women have asked me, why didn't you just ask directions? And I say, oh, that didn't seem like the right solution. So, why didn't I ask directions? In defense of my sex, I have no idea.
Ken, having interacted quite a bit with the eye care health system and a number of, I'm sure, doctors along the way, is there anything that you wish they had done differently in their communication style, or they had shared with you that you felt would have been helpful if you could go back and give them a piece of advice to say, hey, maybe if you had presented it this way, or if you had shared this detail with me, that would have kind of set me on a faster path to my adventure, or make life a little bit easier?
Well, I always asked a lot of questions when I was getting an eye exam. So I don't know if that's normal, but I tried to have a conversation with and get to know to a small degree my eye doctor during those conversations. So that's where I learned, like, one of my eye doctors was a big rower. I don't row, I like running and swimming and stuff. But the idea that general health helps everything, including your eyes, seems like that was really good. And having those discussions reinforced that for me. In terms of what could have been different, I think there's one big thing, which is I wish when you make the appointment, and it's too late by the time you get to the doctor, I wish they would, and I should know this, I'm 68, I've been going up for get eye exams every year for like forever, and I should have this memorized, but it would be really great if when you make an appointment, they say, and don't forget to wear sunglasses. Bring them with you. As I can't tell you how many times, but it's like way more than it should. You walk out of after your eyes are dilated, and I always hope for like a rainy, cloudy, crummy day, but sometimes you really get caught out, especially not so much in Australia where I live now, where there's no snow, but come out in New York and it'd be a beautiful blue sunny day with snow on the ground. There's no place to look without having light jamming in your eyes, and it completely my own fault. I didn't remember most of the time to wear sunglasses. I think it's because I wore glasses most of my life, and I'm just not in the habit of putting on glasses. So I have 2 pairs of sunglasses. I really like them. I forget them the vast majority of the time. So getting that reminder, which who knows, maybe nobody else needs it, but I would like it.
Any other questions?
All right. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the questions. I really appreciate everybody coming. And thank you again to Jennifer and Dawn and everybody at SUNY Optometry. And best of luck to the students.
Ken has designated a book for our library here, so be the first to check it out. We'll be bringing it downstairs tomorrow, so it'll be added to the collection. But thank you everyone for coming, and Ken, thank you so much. It has been a wonderful conversation. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.